The brand new Specter Gauntlet is hands down the most unique weapon in Horizon Burning Shores. Its futuristic design and ammo types set it apart from the more tribal-inspired weapons that the Horizon series is known for. Plus, the Gauntlet's mechanized sound design creates a stark contrast from the more practical weapon sounds we've grown so accustomed to. The Gauntlet is only obtainable in the new Horizon Burning Shores expansion during one of the main story missions. The pickup for it is unmissable, but once you obtain it, however, the game does not provide much insight on how to utilize it in combat. Hey everyone, Atano here, and this video will serve as a comprehensive guide teaching you all about the Specter Gauntlet. We'll be doing a brief overview of its ammo and damage types, the full auto versus semi-auto firing methods, how to increase its damage output with outfit perks and status effects, plus how it couples with certain Valor surges. All footage is captured on version 1.023 with the hard difficulty. But with all that said, let's dive right into the complete breakdown of the Specter Gauntlet. The Specter Gauntlet is a mid to long range weapon that fires an automatic shard barrage in a semi-wide area, dealing average damage to enemies. The Gauntlet features a 4-second overheat feature that will take into effect after firing exactly 10 shards with the fully automatic firing method. However, you can avoid the overheat status entirely by adopting the semi-automatic firing method if you periodically press R2 instead of holding it down. The shard barrage deals 60 tear damage and also 40 explosive damage per hit. So if we do the math, you'll see we can deal 600 tear damage and 40 explosive damage per clip. The tear damage numbers are hidden, however, and not displayed during an encounter, which is why you'll only be seeing the explosive damage number being represented. All on its own, the barrage has fairly low accuracy, yet it still serves its purpose for taking off armor plates across a machine's body and for dealing damage across a wider spread to hit multiple machines next to each other. But when combined with its weapon technique, you can create a designator on a machine where the shards will now track towards. This essentially turns the shards into homing missiles. This is really awesome for now targeting machine weak spots, components, and most importantly, flying enemies like the Glinthawk, which are so annoying to fight to say the least. You'll also notice that the shards now turn orange, indicating that you have an active designator for the shards to track. Side note, using the shard barrage with this designator does increase the damage per hit by 10, increasing your explosive damage to 50 per shard. Whether or not this damage increase applies to tear damage is currently unknown to me since the value is hidden, but I would assume that it increases as well. The designator will disappear after exactly 15 seconds, or if the component it is attached to is destroyed or removed. You'll also find that shards have a very small chance of dealing double damage with a critical hit. The game doesn't give us any info on the exact percentage of a critical hit happening, but I can assume it's probably 5 or 10% like some of the other weapons in the game. Now, I want to share a quick test I did to show the speed difference between the fully automatic and semi-automatic firing methods. I wanted to provide this since I've actually heard people say that the semi-automatic method is faster since you can avoid the overheat status entirely. But if you look here, you see that firing 20 shards with the fully automatic method takes just about 8.5 seconds, while the semi-automatic method takes just over half a second longer to fire the same 20 shards before overheating. This half a second difference will not make any significant impact during combat, so you can take this info into account however you please. But I think in terms of which method will do the quickest damage possible, the fully auto method is the way to go, especially since you can very quickly fire out just 10 shards, and then when the gauntlet overheats, you can just swap ammo types or weapons to continue dealing damage to your target. With the semi-auto mode, you're basically avoiding the overheat status, but in turn getting a slower fire rate, so you end up kind of breaking even with this method. But regardless, I think the Gauntlet has a lot of versatility in how it can be fired, and understanding how each firing method operates can help you determine which one to use in certain combat situations. Now, next I want to talk about the Gauntlet's Railgun upgrade. You'll need a special component in order to perform this upgrade, and that component can only be obtained during the In His Wake side quest, which you will get access to once obtaining the Gauntlet and returning back to Fleet's End, where the quest marker can then be seen on the map. When upgraded, you get the Railgun ammo type, which fires a singular charged piercing blast that can deal some awesome damage if used properly. Once the blast is charged, it deals 250 impact damage and 500 tear damage if you target a machine's removable components. You can cause the gauntlet to overheat if you hold this charge for too long, so be mindful of this and release the blast before this happens. The range on the railgun is also quite impressive, even outperforming a sharpshot bow. And on top of that, it can trigger resonator blasts left behind from your grapple strikes. One of the more unique features on the railgun, however, is its ability to pierce through enemies, dealing damage to everything in its path. You can also take advantage of the Designator technique, which will increase its damage output if you can aim and hit the Designator. Once again, the game doesn't give us an exact number for how much damage this explosion will cause, but during my testing, I found that the damage number ranged from 700 all the way up into the thousands. I'm guessing the variable damage increase can be attributed to whether or not it is being applied to the railgun's tear damage output or its impact damage output. But again, in my testing, I found it difficult to trigger one or the other, regardless of if I was hitting a machine component versus a weak spot. So if any of you have any insights as to why this may be, definitely let me know down in the comments. Triggering a Designator can also produce shrapnel. It rains down and deals impact damage to machines in its area of effect. The exact amount of shrapnel seems random, but it can always be triggered when hitting a Designator with a blast that has already pierced through another part of the machine first. Your total damage output will be extremely high as well, since you'll be dealing impact damage from the initial blast, then on top of that you will be dealing damage from the explosion and shrapnel. It can also help if the Designator is placed high up on the machine's body, like on top of a Tremor Tusk's back versus down on their leg. This allows the shrapnel room to rain down and deal as much damage possible. Status effects can also be paired with the Specter Gauntlet to further increase its lethalness in combat. Most notably, the frozen status doubles a weapon's impact damage, so you can bump the railgun's impact damage stat up to 500. Sadly though, this damage buff does not take into effect when you're hitting a Designator to trigger an explosion. And you can see here that both explosions are dealing just about the same damage, regardless of whether or not the machine is frozen. One thing to note, however, is the shrapnel that can be produced from an explosion will receive that damage increase, so there is still a small benefit to hitting a Designator while a machine is frozen. The Shard Barrage also receives a 25% damage increase when paired with the frozen status, bumping that base damage up from 40 to 50 and then up to 60 when also paired with a Designator. The Shard Barrage also has impressive knockdown capabilities given it deals explosive damage, and this pairs wonderfully with the corrosive status. Machines in the corrosive state have a much higher chance of being knocked down, so coupling the corrosive status with the barrage's explosive damage will yield some impressive results, allowing you to knock down larger machines far quicker and easier. It's important to remember that you cannot equip any coils on the Specter Gauntlet, so finding other ways to boost its power with these status effects should be of top priority. Another easy way to increase its damage output will be to unlock the Mounted Archer skill over in the Machine Master skill tree. This skill increases your overall range damage output by 20% while riding on the back of a Charger or Claw Strider. This damage buff applies to both the Shard Barrage and the Railgun, but once again the explosion caused by hitting a Designator with the Railgun receives no damage increase. Furthermore, an outfit like the fully upgraded Tenakth Vanquisher with its low health range perk will boost your range damage by 80% when you are below 50% health. This low health buff, however, does not apply to the Shard Barrage's explosive damage. It will only apply to impact and tear damage. This outfit also has some other great perks like low health defense, low health Valor, and Valor Surge Master. I then recommend equipping both a Weapon Stamina Plus and a Valor on Impact Weave on this outfit. The extra stamina will allow you to attach more Designators throughout the fight without waiting for your stamina to refill. And the Valor on Impact gives you Valor every time you receive damage, giving you the opportunity to potentially use your equipped Valor Surge more than once during a fight. And now to quickly recap before hopping into the topic of Valor Surges, to deal the highest damage possible with the Specter Gauntlet, you'll want to equip the fully upgraded Tenakth Vanquisher outfit while riding a mount with your health below 50%. And lastly, inflicting the machine with the frozen status. Now let's talk about Valor Surges. The Chain Burst Valor Surge is great for chaining damage between machines in a large group while also increasing knockdown power by 100%. The Gauntlet Shard Barrage pairs very nicely with this Valor Surge, and it definitely gives it a noticeable buff in combat. The Part Breaker Valor Surge increases your damage to a machine's components and weak spots by 85%. Both weapon types on the Gauntlet benefit from this buff tremendously, and using it alongside the Designator technique can make dealing damage to those components far easier. While this Valor Surge is active, you'll also have a 30% chance of triggering a knockdown when removing one of those machine components, which can come in handy when you least expect it. Next is the Elemental Fury Valor Surge, which increases your elemental buildup by 200% while also doubling the time in which an elemental state will last. This makes applying the frozen status to machines much easier and lets you deal double impact damage with the railgun for a longer duration. And lastly, I want to mention the Ranged Master Valor Surge and actually why I don't recommend using this one. Although it increases your overall range damage by 60%, the big downside to this Valor Surge is that you will be gaining back 10% of your health on each hit. This will negate the effects of the low health range perk that is found on the Tenakth Vanquisher, which is why I wouldn't recommend using it and instead going with one of the previously mentioned Valor Surges. But that's going to do it for our Specter Gauntlet breakdown video. Guerrilla managed to craft a very special weapon here, and even though at first glance it may seem rudimentary, the Gauntlet soon becomes profound in its combat capabilities with just a little bit of practice. I hope I was able to share some helpful insights with you all today, and if you learned something new from this video, please share that with me down in the comments below, as it really helps out the channel. And lastly, as always, thanks for tuning in today. I'll see you all in the next one.